also holding somewhat of a, I'll just say a brothel, if you will, in this house. This other next door
Oh,
neighbor.
welcome to the Big Dane Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Trimborn, and in this podcast, find the connection in the weird experiences that we all share. Listen to new episodes on Tuesdays wherever you get your podcasts. Hey friends, in this week's episode, I'm chatting with Jon Bandish from Conshy. Listen to his weird and interesting neighbor story. Find out what happened in front of his house when his neighbors were intoxicated and passed out. Welcome, Jon.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How's it going for you?
I'm ready for summer. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm totally with you. Totally there with you. Today was like nice, but not quite there yet.
Well, down here by the beaches, it was in the mid 60s, so I was out for a walk. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Love the beach. Jealous that you live there now. Um, but before we get into the episode, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from.
All right, so my name's Jon Bandish, like you said, and I'm originally I was born in Philly, so I get to say I'm from Philly and not just the surrounding area. But I grew
Yes.
up in the Conshy, Plymouth area. I went to PW many years ago, and yeah, I came down here to Lower Delaware to live a few minutes inland from Bethany Beach in Rehoboth, and I'm still up in Conshy a lot, still have all my roots, and yeah, I'm a fine artist, I'm an oil painter, so I go up and down the East Coast. I actually just yesterday signed a new contract with a new gallery up in New Hampshire, so happy to be on this
Wow.
podcast and talking about some crazy cookie theories, and yeah, that's me.
That's so cool. Well, I can't wait to see what else you have coming out then for your art. I feel like all of your stuff, I'm like, I love everything.
Thank
So
you.
talented. I mean, I always like the oils. Like, I think that's so cool. That and like watercolor.
I will tell you, I'm a terrible watercolorist, but all I do is oil. It's
I'll have
slow, and I
to
love it.
I'll have to share with you my mom's friend, she does a lot of watercolor. And it's
Okay,
like blows my mind. I'm like, how are you doing this? But
awesome.
anywho, yeah. So let's get to know you a little bit more with some weird questions.
Got
So
it.
you said you had some weird superstitions, so let's hear about it.
Okay, so I definitely have at least one weird superstition where um, if I see, well, I guess I have like I can really say like two. One's kind of fun, and one's definitely weird. I'll start with a weird one. It's funny to even think about it because like I don't know if I've ever actually said it like publicly out there. Um, if I wake up and I don't immediately reach for water, I feel like I'm gonna have the worst day in the world. I have to like the first thing I do before I do anything, I check the phone, anything. I have to have. I always have like a bottle of water or a glass of water by the nightstand, and if it's not the first thing I do, I freak out. And I was like, oh, I gotta like lay back down and like pretend like I fell asleep or actually fall asleep, and then like
Oh my gosh.
go for water.
Wow, interesting. You
Yeah,
should
I
have
don't
been
know. It's
on
like,
last season's.
oh really?
Uh, yeah, because it was all about like weird things you do in your routine, so that's a little weird.
Got it.
But I always keep like a water bottle next to my nightstand as well. But that's interesting. I guess
I don't know why. Like
that,
I'm always drawn to water. I mean, like that's why I
yeah.
moved to the beach, and it's like what I paint, like is mostly revolves around the water, or whatever. So it's not like surprising in that respect. And like everybody like goes to bed with like a glass of water or something. That's not like normal. But like I just mentally freak out, and I'm like, if I don't do this, I'm gonna have like the worst day. Like I'm like terrified that I'm gonna be like, oh my god, I'm gonna like go like I'm not gonna have any water to drink all day if I don't do this now. Like I just freak out. So.
And nothing had happened to you before where you.
I mean, unless I like repressed memories or something, I don't think so. But
yeah, well, they say you block out trauma, so maybe you blocked it out.
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Well, all good stuff. Now let's get into this weird neighbor experience. Break it down for me. Where were we? What year did this?
All right, so I don't remember what year, but I used to. So I'm from Conshy. I lived in Conshy. I bought my first house in Conshy. I was at 545 Old Elm Street, so technically Plymouth Township in Cunnytown, but basically Conshy. And if you're ever on Old Elm up that way, it's a cul-de-sac. And I didn't have anybody on the other side of me because it's 476. And then across from me was just sort of like an open lot. So like anytime that we saw like a car that wasn't like a neighbor's car that we knew who it was, we were all kind of like looking like, we were very suspicious because we had our own little corner of the world. Nobody really bothered us. And we were cool with that. I say we as in myself, who lived there for a number of years. My neighbor had been there for like 20 years. Jimmy was kind of like our unofficial block captain. He literally grew up on that street. So he had been there for like, 50 years. And in general, all of us had been kind of like lifers for a while there. So there was one house, though, that was always for rent. And there would be somebody new that would come in like every so often. And it was like, that's cool. It's not a big deal. We just, hey, it's our little corner of the world. Just be respectful, that kind of thing. And so, again, like it wasn't like odd that like every once in a while, maybe a new car, but then we knew who they were.
Sure.
So some point with all of this, one of these new renters, they were young. They liked to party. I'm like, listen, I can't judge because I was 20 a long, long, long time ago. So I used to do the same thing. So I'm not going to like judge you for you doing your thing, whatever. And I don't mind like, the late nights or something like that. So all of a sudden I'm in the house and I hear this loud, like thudding kind of crash sound, like a up, and I'm like, what is going on? Go out from I was on the second story, go out to the front of the house and I look out the window and all I see is this Jeep that's like half on the curb on the sidewalk, half off, wheels all turned, doors open, the top's all like flying out. Okay. And I see my next door neighbor, Gene, like standing over top of this person. I don't know who they are. I'm like,
and
what just happened?
Yeah. And so the guy was like outside of the car. Like, did he get ejected or something? Or like,
no, just kind of like almost like if you like what I found out later. Like almost as if like you kind of like opened the door and just sort of fell out of your vehicle, not like flying across the street. Or
Yep.
So I, of course, like a neighbor, like a good human being, just like I'm gonna go help you. So I didn't even like think to grab my phone to like I don't know call 911 or something. We again kind of usually just help ourselves out. I don't know what happened. He didn't crash into anybody's vehicle or like there's a telephone pole right there. Like he missed all of that. I just didn't know what happened. So it sounds like, oh my God, like somebody was wrong. Like, how is this weird? Well, you come to find out that it's one of these new renters, and they were very heavily intoxicated. So then I got a little like kind of like angry almost, like, hey man, you're driving drunk in the middle of the day. This is happening like middle of the day, middle of the summer, like 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like,
wow. I was just
not
about to
late
ask,
at night.
like, normally, I think we all think, at least for me, the first thing that comes to mind if someone's driving drunk, it's at night because people go out late at night, go to bars, blah blah blah.
Yeah, it would be like, hey,
in the middle of the day, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you would think like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I would have expected that and have been like, okay, well, not that it's okay, but like I would have expected that more, not in the middle of the day. Well, my neighbor Gene, who's this great guy. I loved living next to him. He was always a super helpful kind of guy. He's kind of guy to give your shirt off his back, right? He's like out there trying to be like, what's going on? Like, can we help you? And find out that like, he was driving with a suspended license. So like somebody else had already called the police. So like this is unbeknownst to us. So the license was
Okay.
suspended. They had a bunch of tickets already. They had an arrest warrant out for them in Philly and in Norristown. Okay,
Wow.
2 separate names, which was like, okay, well I guess you have like fake IDs or something. And like all this is happening, and like this is just like right in front of my house, and it's just like, oh, okay. I don't know what to like say or do or whatever. So they're completely spilled out, completely like hammered and wasted, and they're trying to help them. And we're just trying to help them like get inside. Didn't know this, so eventually Plymouth and Conshy cops come. They get this guy. Well, what I didn't know also at the time, a little bit to add some like extra ridiculousness to the story, was that they as in the police, and I don't know what police, I don't know like how this is all happening. Full disclosure, I wasn't there the day that the police came back to arrest this person, but this person was also holding somewhat of a, I'll just say a brothel, if you will, in this house. This other next door neighbor is telling us, hey, I've looked out my window and I can see a party of sorts happening. You had teenage
unquote party,
quote unquote.
The video version of this will not be released.
Sorry, yeah, I'm trying to stay kind of like PG or whatever for this.
We can curse and whatever, so that's fine.
Okay, well, there's basically a sex party happening, and let's just say usually those things involve money, alcohol, drugs, something that's happening, right?
Yeah.
And this other neighbor of mine, Ginny, was saying like, yeah, like I've seen this. I came home one day and saw this person sitting on those steps with their head in the lap of another person. And I'm like, oh, this is getting like too much for like even Conshy. I'm like, this is no, this is not okay. So finding all this out.
Not for Conshy. Like, come on.
Do you know what I mean? I was just like, oh boy. So finding all this out, they have an arrest warrant. They hit somebody else's car at some other point, and like this person, and I say person because I don't know how they identify, and I know the world is what it is now. But we definitely found out that they were, at the very least, I'll say just transgender. I don't know how they identify. I don't want to do anything like be mean to nobody, but yeah. So like they were all of these things wrapped up into one, and this like crazy character of a person who like I never really actually like met. I don't even know his or her name, so I don't know even how to refer to them as what their name is. But I just sat there like, all of this stemmed from the fact that the very first time I'm ever introduced, like getting interacted with this person, is they are literally falling out of a vehicle. At the time, I didn't know that they were drunk until later. They have arrest warrants with multiple names. They're having like this crazy sex party life at this like house in Conshy, and I'm like, what happened? What world did I just like come out of?
Maybe they recruited some peeps from Seventh Heaven that used to be.
Listen, people know this as the Conshy Ballet, so if anybody watching this will remember that phrase or that name of that spot, you know, if that was the case, listen, you can keep whatever stays at the ballet, let it stay at the ballet, and I'm good.
Wait, was I guess during that time, was Seventh Heaven there when this was happening?
You know, to be honest, I don't remember when Seventh Heaven closed.
Well, Seventh Heaven closed recently.
Oh, did it? Because I know
if this, yeah.
Well, then yes, at the time, because this was years and years ago, so this wasn't like any time in the recent last year or two. This was way before COVID or anything else. So
right.
I found, and it's like I found all this information sort of out like in piecemeal, like after the fact, and going, no, I'm not okay with that. Like that's just a little too much for me. So
let me ask you this: so like, how long, like, what kind of time span had happened? Like it was like, okay, day one,
maybe a month.
Out of the car, a month. So
like
it was
maybe
like little
a
by
month.
little that you found out some information, like over a month.
Yeah, and I say little by little, and that I don't even know if a month would be. That may be like way too long, if because it happened a while ago, and I just when I started thinking about it, I'm like, man, like I don't remember when that happened. I should reach out to Gene and like say, like, do you remember when this started, because I remember he was involved with, excuse me, it wasn't him, it was Jimmy was involved. They had sideswiped either his truck or his wife's car or his son's truck. I forget whose car they had sideswiped, but they were involved in, well, I guess that would be like a small claims lawsuit or something like that.
Sure.
But they were involved in something like that, and I don't remember what happened as a result of that. But he's the one that, I mean, they literally lived right next door to him, so he could he heard it, saw it, he experienced it more than we did. I just all of a sudden was like, hey, who's the new renter? What? They're doing what on the front steps? Jesus.
Okay, let's take a quick break. For a limited time only, you'll have free access to my coffee page. No, not actual coffee. This is a place for all exclusive content that won't be on my Instagram or Facebook accounts. Check out sneak peeks, behind the scenes, extra audio clips, and much more. Just have a tap on my link tree, look out for that coffee cup icon, and boom, you'll be on your way. Wow.
Conshy back in the day used to be a wild place, y'all. If you're all new to Conshy, it was wild.
Shit gets crazy. What was I going to ask? So with the parties, did that happen during the day too, or was that late at night, or both?
From my understanding, it was for the time that they were there, it was anytime. And I guess whenever they wanted to start, whenever they wanted to start. So I don't know if that meant 8 in the morning or 8 at night. I don't know.
Wow.
That part was like, once I started to learn a little bit, I was like, yeah, enough is enough. And then when I do remember when I saw, if memory serves correctly, there was Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, Plymouth and Conshy PDs were all there to finally take him or her and whisk them away.
Do you know, you may not know, but do you know what happened to everyone at the party? Did they get fined or some kind of warning?
No. To be honest, I don't know. I know that a lot of the other vehicles that we had seen coming and going stopped showing up when they left. So I guess that was the end of that party's house.
Yeah. Wow. So did they also get evicted then? And did you get new neighbors after that? I
think they did. Well, and we did have a whole new a couple of neighbors that had come in. And they all were sort of normal. So I don't know if whoever the landlord was, somebody had said it's somebody that lived on somewhere else on the same street, that they own the house. I don't know, can't confirm or deny that aspect. But that was the only weird anomaly of neighbors that lived on this street. We lived, I guess I'm not doing the best of job of explaining the context of I try to imagine a sleepy little street corner in Conshy that it was a dead end. So you would never turn down there just because it was this
Right.
sort of tucked out of the way little cluster of houses. We sort of unofficially policed ourselves, whenever there was snow, right, and Plymouth would come and do their plowing, they wouldn't send an actual plow vehicle. It was one of the Parks and Recs guys in a pickup truck with a little plow attachment on the front. And even then, I knew him because I went to high school with his son, so I would always get everybody's cars bunched to one side so that they had an easy, clear access to plow most of the street. And I was always see you later, Mr. Loschiavo. Tell Joe I said hi. We were a very tight-knit little community and very kind of quiet, sleepy street in Conshy. So for this to happen was like a bomb going off in the middle of it going, whoa, this was nuts, essentially, I'm just going to say the word prostitute. I don't know if that's completely accurate or not, but that's just how I remember it. So
right.
A prostitute living on your street, it was just doing what on the steps? I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
That is wild. I wonder, now I don't know when More Than the Curve had started their little news media, but if they did head start back then, that's That would probably be the first headline.
Listen, if there was somebody that was going to report on it, I would have definitely been out there being like, "Hey, look, man, this is what I saw. I'll tell you, I don't know. I don't know."
Yeah. That is so wild. Like I can't even picture that here, you know? Like I could see that.
Well, that was why it was like when I came across like when I was like thinking about this, I'm like, I don't know if people are going to believe me, if they're going to like look at me or like listen to this and go, I don't know, that doesn't sound quite believable. And I'm like, I don't know how else to like, what else to tell you? Like, Gene and Jimmy still live on the street in the same houses. Like, I'm not telling you to go knock on their door or something, but they're there, you know.
Okay. Wow. What an interesting story. I definitely cannot top that for a weird neighbor story.
Sorry if anybody, whoever comes next.
This is going to be the first episode on the season. Already started.
Well, what sells, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll sell, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this weird neighbor story. And who knows, maybe someone is finding connection with the story somehow. And maybe they have a similar story in a different town.
Somebody else has another country ballet story, huh?
Yeah. But if people want to get in touch with you, maybe they have some more questions or they just want to look at your art, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Jon Bandish Art. I also have a Facebook page as well, and my website. It's all www.jon, like Jon Bon Jovi, bandishart.com. And you can see my art is on display up there in Conshy at the Artist Loft. So if you walk in, say hi to Matt, and say, hey, I'm going to see some Jon Bandish art, and he'll direct you right to the wall where all my stuff's at.
Yeah. Yeah, pick it up local.
That's it. It's still local. Mm-hmm. All art's still there. I love the beach, but I still love country.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, and we'll catch everyone next week. See ya. All right, my friends, thanks for listening, and be sure to listen to new episodes on your preferred platform. Stay up to date with my podcast by going to my Instagram or Facebook accounts at The Baked Dane Podcast. Interested in being a guest? Just go to my link tree, tap on Be a Guest, and fill out the form. All right, catch you next week.